Hi, everybody, and welcome to the pregame show, Candid Conversations. I'm your host, Mark Gorman, with my other host,
Brenda Hetrick.
The host with the most.
That's right. That's right. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but we are full circle. We're back where we started in the Matrix.
We're back in the other studio.
In the other studio, right? We have been in all the studios we have here at the Matrix office.
And some.
That's right. And so our Mexico office we did. We had a couple from Florida. So we've been in many studios, but we were back at the home Matrix studio today, and really excited about this panel. It's quite topical, as actually, we say that every month, but this is another good topic, another good panel, and great attendance. So we're looking forward to the next Candid conversation.
Well, I will say what I really like about our Candid conversations, pat ourselves on the back.
Always good.
Or as Tim Bush used to say, our favorite line was, "I pat you on the back, but your hands."
Shout out to Tim in retirement.
But they, I've certainly seen other webinars, and there's not a lot of discussion or back and forth. I feel these are really interactive people talking, agreeing, disagreeing, different points of view. So hopefully that continues today. I think it makes it a lot more interesting. We also always try to keep it to 40 minutes, so it's a nice bite for you. So anyway, I do have a tip for everybody today. As Brenda knows, we had a birthday party at my house this weekend, and one of my tasks was to go pick up the food. We had it catered from a local restaurant, a Mexican called Tocayo. Very good restaurant if you're ever in Pittsburgh. They're not sponsoring this, by the way. That was a free ad. So I picked up the food in my car, and there wasn't enough room in the trunk, so I had to put some in the back seat, and the black beans, some of them went out of the container into my car. So first of all, I thought, why did I not bring a couple towels to put down? Stupid. So that's your tip. I did, as you know, clean the car, of course. Next day it smelled, cleaned it again, it was fine. The next day I got in, I'm like, oh, last night I managed to actually remove the entire bottom seat.
Oh, so you could get.
And there was still black beans there. I cleaned it, still smells. Yeah. But I did notice there's like styrofoam under the seat, or like a foam. One of the white foam has a big brown spot.
Oh,
so I'm
black
thinking,
beans. Yeah.
It's like now. So I'm going to see if I can find some enzymes. I'm trying to find a detail shop, but they're all booked. They're like 2 to 3 months out. I'm shocked. What about your husband? He likes detailing, doesn't he?
Well, he likes to have his cars detailed. I'm not sure that he does that work.
Okay,
but his brother always, when he retires from he's the CEO of a small company in northwestern Pennsylvania, wants to detail cars. He's a big Corvette guy. I mean, I'm not a Corvette guy, I'm a girl myself, but yeah, the detailing is Katie in Baltimore. She has a really good group. She gets her car detailed. Note to self, I did not black beans, but milk once when I had younger kids in the car, and that smell seemed to always come back no matter how often you had it cleaned. But so exciting this time of year. We're sports, and I know we always talk about sports. I always talk about sports. It was not a good weekend for Pittsburgh sports enthusiasts. The University of Pittsburgh. Eagles lost 2.
Eagles lost 2.
So everyone is losing. However, I'm a huge soccer, as I call it, fan, and Cristiano Ronaldo is back with my favorite team, Manchester United, and they did win this weekend. So Pittsburgh football team's down, Manchester United up, and in the
what's more important to you?
Probably soccer.
Come on, the Pittsburgh teams.
But when we lose, I just like to shut it down. Don't watch anything. But she
beats her husband.
Yeah, that's right. Other fun, exciting, which I think is exciting. The Emmys were this weekend, and the ratings were back, and they were in person. It does tell you, as much as we've survived the pandemic, not having events in person, there is something to be said about in-person events and just how valuable they are. But another one of my favorite shows, Ted Lasso, is won a ton of Emmy awards. So I'm trying to think if that was I watched The Crown too, it was on there, but anyway, those are back. We've got some interesting things going on in the industry, in the media industry.
Well, I mean, the big announcement today.
Yeah.
Is this the third time they're making you go CMG Apollo?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not CMG, but it's Apollo.
Yeah, yeah.
I assume they'll merge the entities together. This is the third time though, right?
It's
this
at
the
least
third
at
time?
least two that I'm,
Oh,
yeah, it
okay.
might be a third. So mergers, acquisitions, consolidation still going on. Clearly, we're not done with that. One of our panelists is part of Scripps Network, and they had some news last week as well. So the industry is moving, doing some different things, which is good. There are adaptations to the way media is bought and consumed, and inventory is sold, or the revenue models. So there have been changes, but from our side, the technology ecosystem, we know that there's still work to be done, and some of that change is slow. So, but
well, I think it's
good
interesting in
exciting
the industry because, and I'm clearly not the only one to say this, but as cord cutting increases, or I don't know, is it increasing? It just continues to happen. How many?
not at the Hetrick house.
Not at my house either.
As
but,
everyone knows.
but I will say that, here in Pittsburgh, we have FiOS, which I am not a fan of. Sorry, I don't like it. We have Xfinity down south, and I find it actually much better. Neither is a client, so it's not a plug. But the idea that over the air television, you're not going to have a million streaming services. And if people can really start understanding that you still have this option for over the air, depending where you are, can actually be a significant number of channels. Even more today, right? As you see people,
Absolutely.
local broadcasters are able to actually get more into their spectrums, more variety. I think it's interesting because I do really see an opportunity there to re-grab the attention of the consumer. Have they done it? No, I don't think they've really gotten the consumer to understand it fully yet, because people of our generation, under 30,
That's right.
we used to have rabbit ears.
Yes.
And having rabbit ears seems weird, whereas like younger people are like, what? You can get this TV for free over there. Like to them, it's like, in fact, they did a survey, and I think it was I don't forget what percentage it was, but it was like 30% or something of millennials thought it was actually illegal.
Oh, yeah, like they were pirating, absolutely.
So I thought, wow, that's interesting that they would know. So anyway,
it's interesting. Again, the industry's moving. Another news last week, good or bad, in this country, NAB was canceled. We were,
I like how you said that, good or bad.
Well, it's not good for NAB, but given current situations, with the pandemic and vaccinations, et cetera, I guess it was a good idea for them to cancel.
Well, I just don't think a lot of people.
We're going.
But
IBC,
we're still scheduled for IBC, and it now the Netherlands have opened up more to visitors who are vaccinated. I'll be curious to see if that actually happens. Because if it does, it's really the first big event that will be back in person.
Yes,
so
which again is exciting. You do start to miss people. Although we're meeting more, some meetings are in person. We are slowly getting back to those.
And if IBC doesn't happen, then the next big event that will be the first live event to happen. And if you're not signed up for it, you're a fool.
Yeah, get on it.
It's the Matrix Media Ad Sales Summit at the end. What is it? 2022, in
Miami.
Miami.
Oh, it's January. Yes.
January 19th, is it?
Yes,
19th, 2021.
Yes.
In Miami.
Right. Eden Rock.
Just jump on our website, www.matrix4media.com. Look at Summit. You can register there. We'd love for you to join us there. As you know, our fancy in-studio clock, we have a countdown here, maybe another 30 seconds left. I will say this is our last pregame in our last Candid conversations, at least for
Officially,
now.
at least for now, right? We're always open. Anyone want to pick us
I
up?
was gonna say, if you've enjoyed the pregame and you think, wow, this is something that I need on my network newsy, feel free to
give us a call.
Give us a call. We can, we're not expensive.
That's right.
We're probably some of the cheapest content
right.
you can produce.
Right.
But anyway, I guess we should go. We've really enjoyed coming to you.
Yeah, really have. And the Candid, the pregame and then to the Candid conversations, really been a good year. Really
we hope you all have enjoyed this experience with us. We appreciate you joining again. The Media Ad Sales Summit is very much like the Candid Conversations. And we'll see you soon and enjoy. Brenda's your host coming up. Yep. She's the moderator. Enjoy the Candid Conversations. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Take us out, Deanna.
Hi, everyone. If you didn't watch the pregame, I'm Brenda Hetrick, Chief Revenue Officer of Matrix Solution and this month's host of our Candid Conversation and ad-supported streaming TV for the win. And I have a tremendous panel with me today. Which I'm thrilled to have, I have Michael Teicher, from Chief Revenue Officer from Scripps Network. I have Donnelly, Manager of Ad Operations at Cinedigm, and Raoul Marinescu, President of Streaming Sales at Entertainment Studios or Allen Media Group. So I'd like to welcome the panel. And because as we really try to do is keep it to 40 minutes, we've got a lot of conversation topics to get through today. I want to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask each of the panelists as they answer this question to give a brief background of answering this question from their perspective within their organizations, to give you a little bit, to give the audience a little more understanding of each of our panel's roles. But starting us off, describe your organization's path or recent path into ad-supported streaming video and its current growth trajectory, and how you impact that from your role. And Michael, why don't you start us with this question?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Brenda. Hello, everybody. And Brenda, thank you for having me. I joined Scripps almost 9 months ago as Chief Revenue Officer. So I'm in charge of all the revenue based on linear as well as CTV and digital ad sales. So from my perspective, Scripps is actually a company that's been around for more than 140 years, beginning in the newspaper business. But ironically, as old school as that may sound, we've really transformed the company recently in a few different ways, not the least of which through our purchase of ION. We've now launched the networks division of Scripps that hosts ION as well as several of our OTA channels like Bounce and Core TV and other channels like that. But as far as CTV, we've actually been in this business for almost 10 years now, surprisingly. And it started with our CTV first service called Newsy. And then it evolved into Court, Bounce, ION. We have a local TV station package as well. And in the not too distant future, we will be announcing some new fast channels. So for us, we see this as a golden opportunity to combine both terrific assets on the linear side and what we see as a growing opportunity on the CTV side.
That's wonderful. Ian, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm Ian Donnelly. I'm again ad operations manager here at Cinedigm. Cinedigm jumped into the ad supported business about 5-6 years ago with the launch of the first ever app we launched. Actually, was completely AVOD. It was Docurama, and then when we launched Con TV and the Dove channel, which were kind of our tentpole channels there for a couple of years, they focused really on a freemium model, and what we found was the value of ad supported services was very undervalued at the time. Back then, the idea was, Netflix has subscribers, Hulu has subscribers, everybody has all these subscribers, and AVOD was kind of taking a back seat. But what we found was people really had a hunger for free video that was supported by advertisements, and that the advertisements really wasn't as annoying to them. They just wanted to watch movies, and ads are part of the ecosystem of everybody who's used to things from YouTube to traditional cable. And as the advertisement business kind of became more and more popular here at Cinedigm, that's when we decided to really branch out into fast channels. We've actually worked with Newsy multiple times over the years in all sorts of different ways. And now, AVOD is kind of the big focus here, supplying channels, whether we own and operate them or whether we just operate them as a partner of other channels. And we're really optimistic about the future of AVOD markets here.
So Raoul, from your perspective, and I know you're also new to your role, but from your perspective within Allen Media Group.
Yeah, so much like Michael, I recently joined almost about a year ago. I joined Allen Media as in a newly created role as the president of sales for streaming services, with local now being in the core of that. Prior to that, I launched monetization at Pluto TV, so very familiar with the streaming space. What we're doing at Allen Media, and as many of you know, Byron Allen, our chairman, we are the largest Black-owned media company in the country. We do own the Weather Channel. We own plenty of local broadcast stations. We have 16 plus cable networks, and with all those assets, the core of that is streaming, and local now is the core of that. It is the crux. It is the glue that brings all our properties together. So local now is our largest free ad-supported streaming service. With the name kind of gives it up. What the goal is for us we want to be the largest locally local news, entertainment, sports app in the country. We don't want to compete with others at the just general app level. We want to make sure we stay very focused. And so for us, streaming and fast, and we work with Ian and Cinedigm, and we have Newsy on our dial as well too. We want to make sure that we are in the streaming space. If it's via fast, we own fast channels ourselves, or if it's at the app. We do believe the app business is where the future for us is, at least. So we want to make sure that we control that ecosystem. But without a doubt, it is ad supported. The future of media, the way we see it, we believe is on the free ad supported side.
So, and let me just correct, Michael's name is Teicher. I do apologize. I did not have that correct, and maybe my nervousness of getting the panel. So I want to let everyone know it's Michael Teicher, and we'll get that out there. For anyone who has questions or wants to dig in, dig a little deeper into some questions specifically for Michael. So what is the value proposition, similarities or differences, whatever, between the two major form factors, AVOD and FAST? And I was also going to say, potentially, and I'll call on you first to answer this, maybe even give a little more detail as to what FAST means. I think we, just so that everyone's on the same page, or from your perspective, FAST and AVOD, making sure we're all talking the same language.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at Cinedigm, and, one of the funny things about being in like the AVOD business and streaming right now is that there's no real uniform language that we use. This is a very new market. We are very, very early into the streaming, the fast channel, the AVOD market, even though it's been around for years now. It'd be like the same thing as saying, in the early days of cable, but you've been around for years. Cable was around for a long time before they really got a hold of what they were providing to people there. But so being really early in the market, we don't really have a uniform language to describe these things. At Cinedigm, the difference between fast and AVOD really comes down to the format that people are watching. Fast channels are linear. They mimic the traditional cable viewership of channels just being on, and the content plays, and you're not really selecting the title specifically, you're selecting the channel, and whatever's on at that exact time is what you're watching. Whereas AVOD would be like if you came to an app and you wanted to watch let's say My Morphin Life on Con TV, you'd go to Con TV directly, find My Morphin Life and watch it there. That's kind of the AVOD model where you're directly picking the piece of content and watching the piece of content, whereas Fast Channel is linear, it's more traditional, you can pop in and out as you want. You know, the ad, you know, in AVOD, it's like the traditional cable where, you know, cuts to an ad break and people can get a break there, but they can't skip it. It's all linear, so it's stitched into the actual stream. So that's the kind of the difference between AVOD and linear as we see it on our side. If you asked about the value proposition there, they're two very different environments, but there's a lot of value. In my opinion, it's undervalued currently because it's such a new market. AVOD, you know, since people are directly picking content and wanting to watch the content, their focus is a lot more generated directly towards what they're watching. They're more likely to stick through and watch the content all the way through. In linear, it's, or I should say like in the vast channel environment, people are a lot more passive in what they're watching. And I know me and Raoul can talk a little bit about what those, you know, passive and active viewership words really mean to the companies. But, you know, in those roles, you know, they drop in, they drop out, and they're much more likely to binge content in the fast environment than they are in the AVOD. Whereas AVOD, you come and you watch your title. Once it's done, you can move on to the next thing. With a fast channel, it mimicking more traditional cable, you can sit there and watch for hours and the content never stops. So there are two different real environments. The advertisements, you know, being stitched into a linear stream and being stitched into AVOD kind of functions differently, but the value proposition is insane because, you know, you have one audience that's really selecting what they want to watch and another audience that can just watch and watch and watch for hours.
That's so Raoul, do you, so I know Ian said you guys could talk about this. Do you agree? You have a different perspective from you know, Allen Media, from Local Now, or your
Well,
thoughts?
everything that Ian said is accurate. I think where we disagree a bit is on the value of a lean-in viewer versus a lean-back viewer, right? And I think that's the difference. To you know, in my opinion, if you're an eligible viewer, if we're serving you on an AVOD title, on a movie title versus on a linear stream, that value to me is the same from a monetization perspective. Now, what Ian said again, it's true that if you're leaning in and you're actually selecting a movie title and you're saying, I will watch this, you'll most likely dedicate that amount of time to continue to finish that. Versus on the linear side, I may put on Newsy and then, you know, maybe I'll be in and out, right, out of that experience. So that's where the differentiation is. But we do believe, having said that, we do believe that the future is fast. We do believe that the future is all linear.
You know, I do agree actually with both of you that in some ways they are morphing. It's not quite as crystal clear what the difference is, most particularly to the consumer. Remember, we're inside baseball right now. So us and all of our friends that are watching this right now, we're having a definition exercise between AVOD and fast. The consumer isn't saying to him or herself, I think I'm going to watch AVOD tonight, and then tomorrow night I'm all about fast. They're choosing the content that they want to watch. Now, from a value proposition standpoint, there are probably some distinctions as far as advertisers are concerned. I think advertisers can win in both environments. As far as the AVOD space in a company like ours, where it's more app-based, we would have really complete control of that ad environment. What we make of it, what are the opportunities for the advertisers, what's the data associated that we can help capture and deliver to them. Whereas on fast, it's still a terrific opportunity. It's a great environment. It's just more traditional, but we own less of the opportunity. So I look at it in two different distinctions. From the consumer standpoint and what it means, they just look at content. But then for those of us in the industry, where are the best applications for our advertisers?
I guess that's where Michael, that's where the difference is between us, is because we are app-based. So we have our VOD section and we have our EPG, right? So we have that. So you're right, you're right that if you do own the app, you own the data. versus someone that just puts content on that app. So there is value to being the app and controlling that experience. Like Ian said, if you want to download the Con TV app, then they'll own that user. There's value there for sure.
Right, and I say that from the perspective of a company whose revenue is currently almost entirely linear based, but growing on the CTV.
Right.
And like I
So,
said, we're very early to the market.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
being in this early is exciting because there's a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, you really got to figure out, how to really tweak these markets. But I definitely think the value proposition of a fast channel right now, the growth there is exponential with what we're able to provide both to the audience member as someone who's viewing the vast channel and to our demand partners who have ads that they want to target specific audiences to specific regions. They don't want to they want to make sure that the same audience member doesn't get the same ad 100 times. Like we can provide all of that through this technology. I think it's undervalued.
So this is great, but I want to ask then, tying that together with the advertising, how are you generating, or what are your advertising models? What are your sales models, your optimization, your pricing models? Is it the same as a local seller in Scripps's case, like at your station, or even Allen Media, right? Or is it like, Brenda's over in the Pittsburgh? So we don't have either of your stations here in Pittsburgh, but I'm at the WTAE and I'm selling to the local businesses. Is it the same? Is that the same model, or is there a different model? And do you foresee that this, you guys you're all leading, Raoul and Michael are the revenue. So how are you, or what is your plan, your evolution of the revenue model for your organizations?
Well, in our case, we're engaging with advertisers in a wide variety of ways. Let me put one thing to the side. So I'm in charge of the national revenue. Having said that, of course, we own 60-something television stations, which drive an enormous amount of revenue, both in traditional advertising and on a local side on their websites, et cetera. But from a national standpoint, we're equipped to deal with our advertising agency and client partners in almost any way or fashion that they want to, meaning we are happy to do deals via programmatic. We're starting to do more and more direct advertiser deals because we think in our particular case, virtually all of the content that we're selling is owned and operated. So you mentioned something earlier about making sure the same ad isn't seen over and over again. That's probably one of the better benefits of doing business with us within an environment where we own and operate everything, because we're able to control that. So if an advertiser is interested in engaging with us through programmatic pipes, we can do that. Direct selling, we can do that. We're seeing a definite uptick, and maybe it's partially due to our structure, and maybe we'll talk about that later, I don't know, but we're definitely seeing an uptick in the amount of business we're doing directly with the agencies, directly with the advertisers. And then another thing that we're doing, which I think is really important, and it's certainly not the case, in Allen Media's particular case, but there's a lot of content creators out there and people who have some wonderful stuff. What they don't have is the backbone and infrastructure to sell it. So one of the areas that we're growing our business in is third-party sales representation, because we have the technological ad stack, we have the ad sales force. So for those companies like Augusto, for example, which is the Canadian food network, they've developed some wonderful content. They haven't built the infrastructure to be those who can sell the ads. So we're working with companies like that, which is making our offering more robust, and it provides an outlet for them to either defray some costs, or they don't have to be the expert at everything. Let them create fabulous content and let a company like us who knows how to sell it monetize it for them.
Raoul?
I was going to say, Brenda, and Augusto is a great channel. You guys should watch it on Local Now or any of the other less important apps out there. It is wonderful content. So, from if we were just to pinpoint to streaming only, we have a wonderful sales team. We obviously are very fortunate to have the Weather Channel, and it was one of our portfolio. There's great sellers there, and we have cable networks that have amazing salespeople, and we're having a record-breaking upfront year for us. So it's the direct side is working. However, at the core, it's all about programmatic for us. It's programmatic first. And so when we think about what we're going to do is we want to layer a base with programmatic, because we know that, as many salespeople as we have, there's thousands and thousands of others out there who will be able to do the work for us. Our SSP partners at SpotX, Magnite, and others that are really helping us monetize. Now, to Ian's point, what we have to do is we just have to play a balance to make sure that we control the ad stack and we own the technology to be able to give that viewer a really good experience, right? We don't want to play the same, Jake from State Farm ad back to back, right? We see that plenty on cable, even though they could manage that, strangely enough. But we know for us, it is, let's layer a base with programmatic, and then direct sales will be an additive to that. And so that's the way we look at this. And it's not to discount one or the other, because direct sales, you have direct relationship with the agency, with the advertiser. That's way more valuable than me just sort of, being a middleman here, if you will, between an SSP and the demand side. But we want to make money while we go to sleep too, and programmatic helps us do that, right? They bring in those advertisers while we're home having a good time, watching soccer, Brenda, right?
So, Ian, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah. I'm doing very much the same of what Raoul and Michael already said that we do. There's different layers that we like to use to monetize our content. I'd say at the top layer, if you really want to get to the high level stuff, it would be the direct sales, where advertisers come in, they want to sell on a very specific channel. For anyone on the call who's knowledgeable about Cinedigm, we manage a plethora of channels, all sorts of different content, from niche market to broad market. And we work with partners who say, I like this channel, I want this audience. Can you get us the first slot for these people? We need to target these people. And that brings in some really high revenue CPM campaigns. But, much to Raul's point, the base of what we're all doing right now in the AVOD space is programmatic. And for everybody on the call who, again, these definitions are not uniform across industries. So, programmatic is the ability to bid on a very specific user who hits an ad break at that specific time. It's the ability to hyper target audiences based on location, based on the user's watch history. I mean, like anything that you could imagine your advertisers being targeted to on like web, we can now do on smart TV, we can now do on apps. Programmatic is the base because, it's an open marketplace. People are able to bid against each other. It finds the best price for us. It finds the best price for them. It makes sure that the value of who you're bidding on is based off the value of what you think that user's based on. Again, I'm speaking at this from like a demand point of view. But that is the base that runs under, we don't have to go out and source all of the advertisements ourselves. We're open to all of these different people. There's some very talented demand sourcing teams out there. We're open to letting them, work with each other, bid on different areas of the content on a user specific level. And that's the baseline there. And then under that, we're able to do direct campaigns that are, more call based, where it says call this number on your screen, that can be at the very floor alongside, house ads to monetize, to say, hey, if you like this channel, go check out that channel. So you have all these different layers that are all kind of intertwined with one another and working with each other to really give the best value proposition to the channels.
So you've all talked about this process, and I'm curious from just the straight monetization of your inventory. And you've talked about, Raoul talked about, we have to own the tech stack, we need to own this. So are there technology limitations in the monetization of your inventory, or where are the technology limitations in the monetization of your inventory from start to finish?
Yeah, I'll kick this one off just because I'm in the weeds in this every single day. Are there technology limitations? Absolutely, there are technology limitations. And I'll reiterate again, we are very early in this market. We don't even have a uniform vocabulary to describe a lot of the stuff that we're working in. There's absolutely technology limitations, but at the same time, these aren't limitations that are, systematic to what we're doing. These are limitations that exist because we haven't found the answer to them yet. And once we do, it just gets better and better and better. And we've already seen massive, massive improvements from server-side ad insertion developments to client-side ad insertion developments to the ability for our waterfalls to more dynamically work with programmatic, to the ability for us to source direct campaigns better. If you want an example of what limitations might exist, the limitations come down to, if you're looking at fast channels, one of the big limitations is, how do we get the content object of a linear stream to give metadata specific to the content being played at that specific time? That's a limitation that we've been working through, and there's already a couple solutions out there, and there's different solutions that different people use for what they need. These limitations, I would say, they're really not an example of how this is a problematic area to be. They're more like hurdles that once you overcome, it just makes this space more profitable. It makes it a better user experience for the end user. It makes it more valuable to the demand partners. And that's just what happens when you get into a market early. If Facebook stopped in the early stages of Facebook because they didn't know how best to market their advertising space on their website, they wouldn't be where they are now. So over time, this just gets easier and the technology just gets better.
Got it.
Yeah, from my standpoint, and I'm not here, nor am I capable of talking about the technology. I do know that we have a pretty premier ad stack. So and like I said, with our owned and operated capabilities, that really helps. But one of the areas that of concern or limitation certainly is the access to the data. Obviously, within different distribution partners that will remain nameless, we don't have access to the data. And I think if there's a uniform way for all of us to transact upon common information, common data, it would allow our content to stand out. And I just tend to think this just falls under the category of, it was years ago, TV is dying, et cetera, et cetera. Well, a lot of the TV advertisers stopped selling against one another. And what they started to do was collectively say, TV is fantastic. So, to Ian's point, which you've made a couple of times, we're so early into this game and we see the demand is there from advertisers that while we will be competing for dollars, I think the industry is best served by having some uniformity to it to drive overall dollars. And then the best content will always be serviced by the advertisers.
It's interesting that we're debating if there are limitations or not. And while I agree that there's a lot to be done, and this is sort of still the wild, wild west of streaming, it's good enough. It's good enough to build a great business. Pluto isn't doing anything different than what we're doing, right? And they build $1 billion business. Tubi is knocking on Pluto's door, and they're not doing anything different than what we're doing, right? The same technology partners, same stack, same type of data. So it's good enough, right? When we're thinking about television, right? And we're thinking about, them owning that $80 billion pie that all of us want to take a bit of a bite out of, right? That's built on a really crappy technology, AKA Nielsen, right? Everyone tells us that, hey, we wish television had sort of the metrics that you guys have on streaming, right? Make it, I want that one-to-one relationship with my TV viewer. So to me, those are signals that while we have a lot of work to do, we shouldn't really ponder if technology is going to be a blocker for us. It's good enough. It's what we do with the current information, and what we have is, how do we monetize our platform? How do we differentiate ourselves? What's the difference between Scripps and Local Now versus Cinedigm, right? How do you differentiate yourself? It's owning that inventory. It's having that first party data. I'll say my data is better than yours, and you say, no, mine is better than yours, right? And then it's up to us to convince the buyers on that end that, that maybe there is a value prop to go with Scripps versus Local Now, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's good. A lot of work to be done, but how do we get those TV budgets to streaming is the question.
So we have a great question that ties into this, and it is from Kevin, and he has, I feel the CPM has become the wild, wild west when it comes to streaming TV. How are you managing the CPMs direct and non-programmatic? And I'd like to just take that into another discussion point that we were thinking of, and that is the whole measurement of, how our, measurement, and you mentioned Raoul Nielsen, dare we say it, how has that impacted your business model, or has it, or and if it has, what needs to happen to improve it?
Yeah, this is a funny question. I feel like a lot of people get really, really hung up on CPMs. They say, get those CPMs up, get those CPMs higher. We want those CPMs to be as high as possible. I'll ask you this. Would you rather have 100 impressions at $10 or 1,000 impressions at $7? And that's the game that we play in advertisement operations, is especially to Raul's point with like programmatic and the baseline of all of this. It's that demand partners are looking for the impression at the best possible price. And, that means that they're going to have to bid higher than their lower competition, but they don't want to bid too high. And focusing on CPMs and getting those CPMs higher and higher and higher ends up excluding the possibility of someone who might bid more on your content. Instead of CPMs, I would really say, this is a metric that a lot of people get too hung up on. And to be honest, it is something that I have to monitor every single day to make sure that our CPMs, are appropriate for our channels. But more important than like where the CPMs are on a scale of like more CPMs, it's kind of where in this spectrum of CPM are we getting the best results? And higher CPMs does not always mean more revenue. Higher CPMs can actually mean you're excluding someone who's willing to bid 3 to 10 times more than someone who's coming in at that high CPM level.
Ian, when you say more, do you mean volume, or do you? Because
I'm saying price. When people always come in.
That when you're saying more at a lower price, because the media economy is driven by CPM.
Right.
So if you can, maybe I'm just not understanding what you're saying. So if the media economy is driven by, the cost per thousand, you're saying bid more at a lower price, but are you saying they're willing to buy more inventory?
Exactly.
Okay, I was wondering how you were differentiating.
Exactly.
For the win for your company, was it volume or price? In this case, you're saying volume might be the win.
Bid density is kind of where I really like to focus. What's that price range where you're going to fill the most impressions? Because at the end of the day, if that impression doesn't get served, no one gets paid. So what is that price where people are saying, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, I'll buy that? It's just like any other product on the market. You don't want to outprice, but you don't want to come in too low. And that's the balance. And I guess, to sum all this up, my point is, you really don't want to focus on higher CPM. This is a game that we're playing. It's a balancing act with our demand partners that fluctuates from season to season even. So, focus more on what is the best price for your inventory and less on having the most expensive inventory on the market.
I think, I do want to chime in here quickly, because I think the folks that care about CPMs are those that don't have inventory. And the folks that don't care about CPMs are in fast growth services, right? And I've seen this. And so if you have a limited amount of inventory, if you're not willing to grow your streaming service, if you're not, using marketing to grow your audience, then you're going to have a limited amount of impressions. Then, yield does matter. Then you're trying to squeeze margin, and you're not going to win, to Ian's point. But streaming is still, we're at the beginning of all this, right? We haven't even began to taper off a bit here. And so there's so much growth to be done where CPM should not be too much of a concern. As long as you understand what the industry pays and you're competitive with everyone else, you should continue to grow revenue with a modest CPM, and not put the pressure on sellers that they got to give you extra couple of bucks here and there, because now you got to squeeze a better margin. That's a dangerous game.
Michael, do you see it the same way?
I think every day people in Raoul's job, my job, we get paid to predict the future every day. And that's how we manage our inventory. So when you are in a scenario where you have limited supply and you're in a supply and demand business, you need to monitor how you're going to best cover all of that inventory at the right price. So it's fair to the advertiser, fair to the seller, and making sure that, to Ian's point, that you're not going without monetizing X% of it. Now in linear, we're always going to monetize it because whether we do it through general market or direct response. But when you do have limited inventory, and let's face it, we all have good and better inventory. How's that? Good and better. And our demand shows against that. But if you have ultra premium inventory and you have less of it, you are charged with, getting higher rates for it.
But that's very subjective, Michael, right? What is good, better, premium inventory, right? It's so hard to translate that.
Well, it is, but it's also developed somehow based on the demand that you see for it. So if your content is unique, if it's differentiated, like any brand, if your content is unique, if it's differentiated and you see the demand against it, the trigger goes off that says, I have something here. So, and I'll look at our linear channels as well. We sell across an entire portfolio, whether it's news, we have an AA targeted network and Bounce. We sort of have this mosaic of America right now across, because we have 9 channels that we sell. And we understand the supply and demand equation against all of them. It's no secret that this past upfront, there was an emphasis by a couple of the holding companies to make sure that there's far more support for Black-owned or Black-targeted media. I have to tell you that, Raoul? I don't think so. So for those of us who happen to have a network, while we may not be Black-owned, we're Black-targeted, and most of the directors, producers, actors, etc., on our original content are Black, the demand was there. So that's how I look at it. There's a reason why reaching a generic target is less expensive than finding the CPM for those who want to buy a Lamborghini,
Right.
because they're harder to get to.
Correct.
Understood. We've just like 4 minutes left, and I had a lot of more questions, but I'm going to roll my last questions into this will be it, and that is I'm going to combine two. How do you see the streaming space, both ad supported and overall, evolving over time? And like your predictions, rolling that into your predictions of what's going to happen, and if you would like to say, you could, and if like what's the one thing you think will happen or needs to happen in order to just catapult this industry? I know we're new, but what are your thoughts on that? How do you see it evolving over time?
Who you asking?
You can start, Raoul. We'll just go my.
Thank you. Well, look, it's still a bit of a land grab for viewers. We're still in our infancy. I think folks have finite capacity for apps, right? We all have to have our Netflixes, maybe Disney if you have a family, and maybe Hulu, HBO Max, etc. Right? The paid side. On the free ad-supported side, same thing, we probably, there's going to be a handful of winners. And so when I look at it from a pure app perspective, Michael and Ian have the luxury of distributing their fast channels everywhere, right? I kind of have to build my audience. We just have to make sure we create and build a niche that is very, very defensible. And our niche is local, and we believe no one does it better than us. And so that's our focus. We're not going to compete with everyone else in a different space. We're going to stay very focused, and we're going to build a value for our viewers to say, hey, if I want to know what's going on in my neighborhood right before I get to work, whenever we're going to hop in our cars or make it to the office, we want to make sure that we're there for you. We want to make sure that we give you timely information, whether news, sports, updates, and you're there. And then maybe when you come home, maybe you'll choose us for a movie or lean back experience. So it's very much at its infancy. We're very excited where the future of this is heading. We have plenty of challenges. To Ian's point earlier, measurement is one. I know we didn't really touch into measurement, but it's a big one. It's something that has to be standardized. We see the things that have happened on the linear side with Nielsen, just being discredited, by the MRC, and now the ANA is sort of taking shots at them. And that just really exposes the reality that we have here, is that there's a lot of fragmentation in streaming. Everyone's doing something, and there's 1,000 competitors for every single product, for measurement, for DMP, for SSP, for anything out there. So that needs to consolidate a little bit, so the best can rise to the top, and then we can get rid of the bottom feeders. So I think there's still a bit of work to do, but we're heading there.
Michael?
So the history of media suggests that dollars follow eyeballs. It's happened since the beginning of time. And I think that's going to continue to happen. So a couple of areas that I see, plain as day, is eyeballs are going towards CTV. So ad dollars have followed and will continue to follow. Advertisers are not, by any stretch of the imagination, tired or done with television, not even close. The other thing that we're seeing, and this is clearly from a company perspective, is that, cord cutting has created an incredible opportunity for a company like us. To have 9 over-the-air networks is a gift. And that gift is that we are able to reach a unique audience that has cut the cord and watches video on demand. So we see this as a golden opportunity to reach this type of audience. So the dollars are going to go where the eyeballs go. And for us, and I think for, maybe in our case, because on this panel, I'm unique to the OTA space, the more adaptation of antennas, the better for our business. But at the same time, I mentioned earlier, we're leaning heavily and going to lean more heavily into the CTV space, because we know that's where the consumer is going. And at the end of the day, every single time, along with dollars following eyeballs, consumer win. Whatever they choose, that's what we have to do.
Great. Ian?
Yeah, so one of the aspects of us being early into this market is what CTV is, what set-top box streaming is even though it's becoming more and more popular, we're nowhere near the potential of what this provides. There are tons of people out there who are buying CTVs right now who aren't familiar with the ecosystem of fast streaming channels, the ability to say, you don't need cable anymore because fast streaming is built into your smart TV. That's still not a common thing that people think of when they think about their TVs that they're buying, which means as this ecosystem expands, as more and more people upgrade their devices, they get these new environments where we exist, that increases the amount of eyeballs that are there. And that's kind of really where I see us being in our infancy, is for Cinedigm, where we are heavily focused on channel creation, not so much on audience acquisition to the devices that we're on. The biggest thing for Cinedigm is more people expanding into the market where Cinedigm exists. The biggest thing that we think would help us in the future is more people understanding what fast channels are, what CTV is. You don't need to pay all this money for cable, because your TV through the internet can give you the same exact experience without a monthly payment. You're basically just paying, whatever it is for your ISP, and there you go. You've got the whole experience. It's right there in your TV. You just turn it on, launch the app. So, I think that the market right now, one of the reasons it's so undervalued is because it's not as common as, say, cable is, which we've had years and years and years to understand, to grow with, to bring home. This is it's like when the computer first came home back in the day. It takes a minute before everybody understands what they're watching, what's there, they get used to it. And then, to Michael's point, the eyeballs are there, the dollars follow.
That's gonna do it for us. I really do appreciate Raoul, Michael, and Ian's perspective. Speaking as someone who sits in the sales organizations as a technology company in the media industry, I 100% agree that this is where the industry is going. I agree with Michael in that money follow, or the eyeballs are consumers, and I think to everyone's point, we're going to see a shift to, well, we already are seeing it, but we're going to see it more and more, and that is to, fast CTV. And I think the OTA, which we didn't get to talk much about from Michael's perspective, is also unique and interesting. We'll see, but I also agree, television is not going away. But I do think our models of monetizing our inventory, whatever it is, will certainly need to be adapted as the ways the supply path is changing. I think that we need to be aware of that. And the good news is for everyone, this panel is clearly aware of that and working on it. So thank you all very much. I greatly appreciate you, all the three of you, spending your early afternoon with Matrix and with our listeners. Thank you all very much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
See you guys.
All right.
Yep. Bye-bye.